Well, some of the pundits were really mean to President Trump after his first Oval Office address. They said he was low energy. Can you imagine such a demeaning personal insult? Look, I think even the biggest fans of the president would say he's not great reading off the prompter the way he is at a rally where he can kind of feed off the crowd. And that's true of most presidents, with the notable exception of Ronald Reagan giving an Oval Office address in a room where you're not getting any reaction. And it's a very difficult thing to do. Chuck and Nancy didn't do that well either. They were standing there stiffly and awkwardly, staring straight ahead. I mean, you know, and they're both pretty good communicators as well. But of course, the media panning of the presidential speech had more to do with just the style of delivery. It had to do with endless amounts of fact-checking. And I think what was really going on here, and this followed the debate over whether or not the networks, the broadcast networks, should even give the president airtime, which I think was a silly debate. He wanted to address the country on an important issue, and they just didn't want to do it. And of course, they gave in, I think, grudgingly. But in the run-up to the speech, you had all of these pundits, even anchors, coming on and saying, well, you know, the guy lies a lot. Well, you know, we're going to hear the speech tonight, but he's just lying. On MSNBC, for example, this is an hour before the president spoke. Steve Schmidt, Republican strategist, ran John McCain's campaign, fervent anti-Trumper, said, we have a president who will go on TV tonight and lie and lie and lie some more. And there was a lot of that. And then, of course, afterwards, and I have no problem whatsoever with legitimate fact-checking, and some did that. You come on and say, well, the president talked about criminals coming across the border and drugs coming across the border, and here's what the statistics show, and all that's fine. Every president should be held to account for his words. But instead, you had on CNN Don Lemon, you give an address in the Oval Office, and all the networks are carrying it. People don't want to believe because you lie so much. And Jim Acosta, the White House correspondent for CNN, who finally got his credentials back, came on the air and said, I think that address should come with a Surgeon General's warning. It was hazardous to the truth. Now, you think that that guy was giving a fair hearing to the president's address? He also got into this spat with Kellyanne Conway earlier in the day, in which he said, Kellyanne, can you assure us the president will tell the truth tonight? I mean, some people just don't do a very good job of hiding it. And the basic problem here is that the media and the Democrats disagree with President Trump on the premise that there is a crisis, whether it's a crisis that, you know, would in any way justify him invoking national emergency powers, another situation. He says there's a crisis that needs to be dealt with. They're saying there's no crisis. You manufactured the crisis. You shut down the government. So when you start with such a fundamental disagreement, of course, from there, it's just going to be endless rounds of finger pointing and accusations of lying. And not that the president doesn't make misstatements or exaggerate or any of that, but the tone has been so oppositional even before the president even spoke in that 9-minute address that it was really striking. And here's the final point, which is, you know, it used to be in the Reagan era, talk about a guy who could read off a teleprompter, you know, having a big primetime address or primetime news conference. That was such a big deal because you needed at that time, 1980s, ABC, CBS, NBC, in order to sort of roadblock, in order to dominate the coverage so you get your message out to the greatest number of Americans. And there's no question, you know, that having the broadcast networks along, the initial numbers show that more than 20 million people watch just on ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox Broadcast. But right now, you don't really need that anymore. Enough people can watch on cable, they can watch online on a live stream, they can get it on their phones. Anybody who wanted to see this speech didn't need to have a broadcast network in order to do that. And in the YouTube age, these things, any moment, doesn't even have to involve a president, can go utterly viral. So I think that we're all kind of accustomed to this ritual. The president wants to speak to the nation in prime time. And of course, every additional megaphone helps. But maybe in the future, you know, it's just not really necessary for every single major media outlet to carry a speech. And this will be true whether it's Trump or somebody else, because technology has enabled a president to command attention across all different kinds of platforms if he wants to communicate with America. And by the way, you know, I'm glad the broadcast networks nevertheless carried this speech because the president deserved to make his case, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer deserved to make their case, and then the media can spend hours and hours and days and weeks fact-checking, truth squatting, accusing, critiquing, all the things the media usually do. 9 minutes for President of the United States doesn't seem that onerous a request.